So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Judith Wright.
All of you, I'm so glad to see all of you. I assume, given the kind of the topic, but how many of you want a great relationship? Can I see that? Yeah, how many of you want one that's horrible? I don't think I think we all want that. But let me ask you this, who's committed to having great relationships? And if you are, stand up, because that puts more of the commitment up there. So let's just see if you're committed to having it. Now, we're going to do a little mini relating. Really quickly say hello to at least another person, so that we're really starting the whole thing with relating. Hi to you in the live stream. It's great. Good, thank you. And you can come back and take your seats. Yeah, it's great. Because if we're not willing to relate and risk and get out of our comfort zone, then it's really hard to have satisfying relationships at work or in our personal lives. So I really want to thank you, Rachel, for having me. It's great to be back. Thank you so much. And to Google for hosting these wonderful opportunities to be able to share ideas with one another. I also want to acknowledge the transformers. These are we've had this blessing to coach couples for over 30 some years. From premarital work all the way through from empty nesting. Like, we know what the whole arc is now over all this time. And we work with not just couples in trouble, but couples who really want to just play this game of what is possible in intimacy. How can we take relationships farther than people have taken them? How do we go beyond our parents and grandparents? What's possible in intimate relationships? So it's been this grand experiment for over 30 some years. So, which we've done as part of the Wright Foundation for the Realization of Human Potential, where we do everything we can to bring out the best in people, to energize their lives, and to also ignite their world. So becoming the very best person you can become obviously changes the people around you, which is our mission, so that we can have a planet that's conscious and sustainable, and we kind of work on it one person at a time, is how our mission works. So we've also been studying these people who have dedicated themselves to be really, what's possible, who can I become, and also dedicating to intimacy and relationships. So these transformers, I call them, who've been working this couples work for all these years. Not all of them been in 30 years, obviously, the program's been going that way, but our divorce rate is 4 to 9%, as opposed to the divorce rate in our country, which is over 50%. And that's actually not the most important thing. The most important thing is they're really thriving, satisfying, juicy, intimate, growing, evolving relationships. And that's what I am interested in. So, and I also want to thank all the researchers and all the people we pulled together, and we've been studying everything we can about relationships at the Wright Graduate University, and we teach this, and we pull together the most relevant emerging technologies and research to these kind of topics. So, and all the thinkers and researchers whose work we pulled together. And also, I want to also thank my husband and my partner, because part of my research is my own relationship with my guy over 35 years in a month. So I know of what I speak, I know what works well, and I know what doesn't, and I'm going to share a lot of that with you today. Let me find out a little bit more about you. How many of you are in a relationship, a committed relationship right now? Okay. How many of you are or have been divorced at some point in your life? Who's dating, or should be? That's, because you're single, all right, in that way. How many of you have ever had a tough breakup? How many of you wish you'd broken up sooner when you, yeah, I know that one too. I'm sure there's a lot of stories that we all have. And I'm going to be focusing a lot on intimate relationships, but everything I'm talking about relates to all kinds of relationships, with work relationships, family relationship, friend relationship. But let me find out, how many of you want a better relationship with friends? Let me look at that. Okay, great, me too. Co-workers, teams at work, bosses, how about bosses? Yeah, they're like this, okay. But then your family, you see that? I would like better dating experiences, whatever that might be, okay. Who'd just like more intimacy in the relationships you have? How about just more love in any way you define that for yourself? How about more phenomenal sex? I'm not going to talk about that, but I thought I would get you interested in, although the things we're talking about do contribute, because the ways that we relate, they get ourselves more available, get us closer and closer to one another. So again, what I'm going to talk about is going to affect everything. And I'm really excited to be with you and appreciate this opportunity. And if you are interested and there's something you like more of, I have a special gift for you toward the end that I'm excited to share with you. So let's look at this. Like, we all want great relationships. I mean, they're one of the most important things to all of us. It's the thing that means the most to me in my own life. Yet they don't always work out, or we don't always have the skills to do what it is that we need to be doing. So I want to kind of look together with you. I'm going to ask you to work with me a little bit. I'm going to divide the room up a little bit, like maybe kind of about right here. So this side of the room, I'll give you one assignment, and this side of the room, actually there's more of you on this side. Whoops. So we're going to cut it right here. I'm going to cut you right in half. Right. So this way you'll be one, and then the rest. What I'd like for you to do is just get together with 2 or 3 people, turn around so that you've got a group of 2 or 3 people, and I want you to brainstorm for a minute on this side, what makes a great relationship? And on this side, if you gather together just for 1 minute, what makes a bad relationship? What are terrible relationships? What are the elements of just bad relationships, whether they're love relationships, work relationships, family, whatever it is? Bad relationships, good relationships. If you just grab a couple people and just brainstorm for a minute, and I'll call you back in a moment. I'll raise my hand when it's time for us to come back. Just about another 10 seconds. Okay, if you finish that thought, come on back. We'll brainstorm together. Come on back. Come on back. And if we do some discussions throughout this, I'll raise my hand, and if you see my hand, that's our signal to come back. If you didn't raise your hand and be quiet, that would help bring the energy back. But you're pretty good. You're well trained. So let me find out. Let's start with what's bad. What are the elements of a bad relationship? Can you shout some things out to me? What did you come up with?
A lack of communication.
Lack of communication. What else?
Self-centered.
Self-centeredness. Yeah, good. What else?
Disrespect.
Disrespect.
Blaming.
Blaming. Oh yeah, it's a biggie. Yeah, good. Not that any of us ever do that, but you know, others been known to have that happen. Well, let's find out what they say, and then probably whatever the opposite is of that is probably what we would have on this side. So what are the elements of a good relationship, a great relationship? Can you shout? Like that. Sorry, what was that? More positive than negatives. Great, perfect. Thank you. What else? Communication. Respect, which you had disrespect. Thank you. What else? Chemistry. Good. Anything else? What was that one? Honesty. Good. Well, all right, this is interesting, and it's, you know, common knowledge. These are kind of things that we're looking at, but I really want us to be aware of what you think are great relationships, what makes them, and what makes bad ones, because then we're going to compare it to the research and kind of see what we found and what researchers have found, like how accurate are we. So I want to get you started with that. So one of the things I'd like to start with is let's look at that quiz you took, and if you didn't take it, you know, can maybe kind of come along with the rest of us. So, and those of you on the live stream, we'll kind of summarize some of the concepts soon. So, all right, look at the quiz, and what I'd like you to do is take your little quiz, that little card, and count all of your true responses. Count all the true choices. How many trues did you have? We'll start with that. Counting. Looks like most of you got it counted. All right, how many of you had all 20 true? How about between 15 and 20? Maybe somewhere in there. Okay. 10 to 15. Okay. And how about 5 to 10? Okay, perfect. And anybody less than 5? Okay, good. So if you answered true to any one of these questions, you are under the mythology of romance and relationships, because none of them are true. Absolutely none of them are true. None. Did I say none? I think I said none. So none of them are true. So because this is what's really interesting, those of you in the webcast, you can kind of see some of the live stream, you can see a little bit of what we were looking at. Because we think they're all relationship myths that limit intimacy and really keep us from having the kind of contact and connection we can have with others. And in fact, the higher your ratio of true to false, then the more you're under the influence of this kind of relationship mythology. And these are just a sample. This isn't all of them. Alfred Adler says that each of us has these fictive goals that we imagine these things and expecting something from relationships that just aren't realistic and really set us up. So this part of what I look at, they set us up for relationship failure too, that if you believe them to be true, you don't focus on what it really takes to have great relationships. And that's part of the problem with them. They take our attention from what we need to be paying attention to. And even if we know they're not true, I know they're not true, and I'm still under the influence of these, so which is really interesting to see of this. So how many of you want, I mean, if we just look at this in the bigger sense, how many of you would like more romance in your life, however you define that for yourself? The women, or the men are too. I don't mean to be sexist about that, but I think it's something important. But let's look at that. I really want to, let's look at romance for a moment. Katie, if you could do that one, that'd be great. I want to show you a little video clip.
Silly Rose.
It's beautiful. Yeah, I know. So hey, I know that this is a myth of romance, and I cannot tell you, I get totally turned on by this. I have chills, and my heart's going like pitter patter, and I know better. So I am not alone with this. I mean, so it's part of it. But let's look at this. What did you notice in these clips? What's the quality of what's going on? Lots of Richard Gere. I know. It's like you have to Richard Gere. Like, what, isn't that amazing? I know. It's hilarious. What else did you notice? Grand gestures, totally grand gestures, yeah. And how about the conversations? There's like none. There's a soundtrack and nobody's talking. You don't know anybody. It's just this thing, and you get whisked away. And this is what's implanted in our minds in that way. And that's why this is, we are forever fighting these illusions in our work. And even when we know better intellectually, they still are part of our culture. In fact, studies show that 78% of people have Cinderella-type elements in their notions of romantic love. And how we think, not just romantic, in this way it's romantic, but what relationships are supposed to be like. And that, when you have that, and most people do to some degree, you experience a lot of disillusionment and angst and disappointment in relationships, and the research shows that as well. So here's the issue. Most everything we are taught about relationships doesn't work. It is wrong. The things that are in our culture, there are certainly some good things out there, but the bulk of it is not. Often, they don't lead to great relationships. Oftentimes, advice we get is actually harmful. It actually creates a lack of connection. And they're founded in these relationship myths and misconceptions, starting with this myth of romance. And I want to go into that a little bit more, just so we can use that as an overall context for some of the things we're going to talk about. Listen to what the dictionary, how it defines romance. It's really interesting. First one is a love affair, especially a brief and intense one. And the second one is sexual love, especially when the other person of the relationship is idealized and not real. Great. Romance means you have a brief, fake love affair. Awesome. And this is what we want more of. I mean, that's kind of wild when you look at that. So there, wouldn't we rather have a love affair that isn't just brief, or a sexual love that's actually with a real person, that we're real and connected with one another, like say hello. The third definition, though, is really interesting. I want to use that to kind of frame what we're going to be talking about today. It's romance defined a little differently. Romance is an exciting adventure with the potential for heroic achievement. Now, this is more interesting. This is what we're looking at here. Now, this means that you have to have really the courage that it takes to be real and present and authentic, where you're sharing your fears and your joys, your tears and your happiness, your gifts and your weaknesses. You're telling the truth. I mean, because it's really easy to woo someone with chocolates and flowers or whatever. It's easy to make reservations for dinner. It's really difficult to share your reservations about yourself, or about your partner, or about the people around you, or your friends, or about the relationship itself. And this is the crux of what this is really about, to have intimate, thriving relationships. And it's easy to ask somebody out to see a movie. Well, actually, it's not even all that easy sometimes. Sometimes that's kind of hard. But it's harder to ask someone to really see you fully for who you are, and to really ask them to reveal themselves that deeply so you really can see them. So what I want to look at is, what is the real truth? If it's not the myth of romance, then what is it? What is it that really creates thriving relationships? Those of you that are interested in business relationships, I'm focusing this more on couples for today, but everything we're talking about is applicable to business situations and to work and to teams. We use this in our consulting and our teaching and our training in businesses and companies every day. So you'll have to do a little translating. I'll do some of it for you, but kind of want to make this point about it. And because the concepts are the same. The way we need to engage in our romantic relationships is the same we need to engage at work and with our families and everyone. It's being ourselves fully, and we're going to look at that. But let's look at this. I want to show us the heart of the fight truth. This is this heroic adventure, not quite the movie type, but what is the truth? What is really the opposite of this, and what do we go for? I'm going to show you another clip that shows the beginning of a beautiful relationship, and I want you just to sense what you feel with this one and kind of see how that relates to what we just looked at.
You're bored! You're bored and you know it. You wouldn't be here if there wasn't something missing.
Arrogant son of a bitch!
Would you just stay with me?
Stay with you? What for? Look at us, we're already fighting.
Well, that's what we do. We fight. You tell me when I'm being an arrogant son of a bitch, and I tell you when you're being a pain in the ass. Which you are, 99% of the time. I'm not afraid to hurt your feelings. They have like a 2-second rebound rate, and you're back doing the next pain in the ass thing.
So what?
So it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be really hard. And we're gonna have to work at this every day, but I wanna do that because I want you. I want all of you, forever, you and me, every day. Will you do something for me? Please? You just picture your life for me? 30 years from now, 40 years from now? What's it look like? If it's with that guy, go. Go! I lost you once. I think I could do it again. If I thought it's what you really wanted. But don't you take the easy way out.
What easy way? There is no easy way. No matter what I do, somebody gets hurt.
Would you stop thinking about what everyone wants? Stop thinking about what I want, what he wants, what your parents want. What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want? Damn it, what do you want?
Wow, I know. So what's the movie? The Notebook. The Notebook. All right, let's just look at this a minute. So what's the difference in this clip than what we just watched before? So what do you know? What is the quality of this relationship? They're talking for one. But then they're talking genuinely, and they're in each other's faces. They're fighting. They're fully there. They're going for what they really need and want. And he's asking her, don't try to please me. Do what it is that you need to be doing. That's a whole different kind of love going on here. There's something much more real. So if you compare this to fairy tales don't have room for the tough times. They don't have room for fighting. They don't have room for the truth in that way. They're nice. They're not real. They're not fighting. Great relationships have great fights. And I think this is an example of one of those. And being real instead of nice. And instead of living happily ever after, I'm proposing we live deeply ever after. Because that's where the juice is. That's where the growth is and the intimacy is. So if I look at these myths, I've started out with the myth of romance because I want to set this context of how that gets in our way. But there's several other myths. Let me show you the ones that we want to look at. There's a myth of romance. There's a myth of relationships are supposed to make you happy. There's a myth of love means you accept me for who I am. There's a myth of the one or a soulmate. There's a myth of compatibility. And one of you said chemistry. Chemistry is a myth also. The other is a myth of attraction, somewhat related. Or if it's love, it should be easy, or all you need is love. So I can go through all of these or any of these. Which ones do you want to fight me on? Which ones do you want to make, no, this one has to be true. Are there any that bug you more? So I can, yeah.
The one about acceptance.
About acceptance, all right. Anybody else? What else? Chemistry. Attraction. Okay. What was that one? Soulmate. What else? Compatibility. Are you picking most of them? So maybe we'll just kind of go at it, because these are the things I think most of us are looking for. So I'll try to run through as many as I can, then we'll see. So the first one's actually just, I don't think any of you said this one, but I'm going to do this, that if I had a relationship, then I'd be happy. Let me just kind of set that. This is a happily ever after thing. So she's, wow, if I just had that, then I'd be happy. It turns out the research is that, no, it may boost your happiness for a little bit, up to maybe in a year and a half or two, but after that, we go right back to the level of happiness we had before we got in a relationship. It appears we have a happiness set point, and nobody's going to change that for us. The only person that can make us happy is ourselves. Nobody else can do that as much as we want that to do. So what the issue with this is that what happens if we expect a relation to make us happy, and when the inevitable problems kind of come up, then we think there's something wrong with the relationship rather than what could be happening. So each of us is 100% responsible for our own satisfaction and happiness. That's one of our rules of engagement that I think I'll talk about a little bit later. And the purpose of a relationship is not to make you happy. It's for you to learn and to grow and to become the best person you can become. And that's a very different premise in that way. So let's look at, who wanted to accept me for who I am? Somebody over, yeah, okay, great. Let's look at that one. Love means you accept me for who I am. I mean, we're all hungry for that. We want somebody to love us for who we are. Some acceptance, of course, is helpful, but it also can be an excuse for poor behavior. Hey, just love me the way I am. You know, I said you don't work on that way. And a lot, and a lot of women sometimes think they're being, and others, and men as well, think they're being accepted, but actually they're really not being seen or even dealt with. They're not known, and that's not really accepting. So the real truth of this one is that what's really important that we've found in our own research and other researchers have found is it's more important to love who you are becoming, who you could be, not just who you are, which is really an important difference in that way. Because what makes great relationships is supporting your partner to become the very best person they can become, supporting the people that you work with to become their best, supporting your friends to become their best. That's where relationships start taking off. And it's not making somebody, supporting them to be who you want them to be. It's supporting them to become who they want to become. Who is their ideal self? What is their vision for themselves? And how can you empower that? That's what creates intimacy in relationships. And in fact, the more your relationship results in you learning and growing and new things, making you a better person, the better. Much more satisfying relationships, whether this is at home or at work. It's very much the same. And the more self-expansion, they call it, that you experience through being with this person, through new ideas, novel ways of looking things, new perspectives, the more satisfied you are and the more committed you are in the relationship. There's another thing they call the Michelangelo effect, or the Michelangelo phenomenon, where if you're conscious, and this is really conscious living in relationship, if you're conscious, every interaction can help sculpt you and the person that you're with into becoming their next, we call it your next most radiant self, that you haven't become yet. That if you look at your relationship that way, that's its purpose, to really dive in that way, to sculpt our best self. Purpose of a relationship is not to accept you who you are, it's to become who you could become. And that's a different focus for what relationships are really about, and the one that really works. Who wanted soulmates? Wanted to find about, yeah, all right, good. This one's a popular one. 73% of Americans believe that they're destined to find their one true soulmate. But that happens, if you believe in that, it makes it actually much more difficult to have intimacy, because you romanticize. It doesn't last. It doesn't lead to real relationships. It's passionate at first, but when problems arise, you figure you just have the wrong one. This must not be my soulmate. So you don't tend to invest in the same way. You think you're not meant for one another. So you leave. You give up on it pretty early. What they're finding is you tend to be more anxious and less likely to forgive if you have that kind of framework in your mind. You start looking for the right person, or this one's not it. I'm going to get back on the market, or whatever. And you know what it leads to? Really great one-night stands. Passionate, short, brief, flaming. Wow, it's great for that. But long-term intimacy, no. Short-term fiery ones, yeah, but not long-term. Because what we're finding is that believing in cultivating relationships, you're less likely to reject your partner over dissatisfactions. You're more likely to dive into them and learn and grow, which is really important, and become more understanding of yourself and the other. So more importantly, rather than looking for your soulmate, look for someone who is willing to grow. Look for someone who's willing to become, willing to grow with you in that way, and who's willing to work on themselves in the relationship, do the hard work of becoming who they can become. The more you believe that relationships evolve and grow and deepen with hard work, the better. So it's not finding the right person, it's being the right person. Become, if some of you are single, be the person that you would like to marry. Whatever those elements are, you be that. And then attract that to you. That's what's important, not looking to get completed. You know, you complete me. No, complete yourself, and then let somebody add to that for you, but not about being completed in that way. Let's look at compatibility, because one of you said that at 2. All right. So many of us believe that having a lot in common means that we're kind of meant to be together. We both have the same tattoos. You know, if you look at dating sites, I mean, dating sites are all like, I'm looking for someone who likes the same stuff I like, and let's go do stuff. Because, you know, like what the romantic walks on the beach, or certain philosophies or literature or Mexican food, whatever it is, as if that's going to be the thing that's going to make us connect. It's not, because compatibility is totally overrated. It just is not. It's really compatible couples. People are not more happier than others. It's not, when people say we're not compatible, what they usually mean is we're not getting along. It's really not about what this is about. Great relationships change over time. We use what we call the law of complementarity, where you can look for people who are actually even different than you, that you can learn from, that can be kind of rub your edges in a way, that are sometimes even irritating, but it's helping you. You don't feel so comfortable. You're more learning from one another. And in that way, like in my relationship, I was the quieter one, believe it or not. I was the quieter one in the relationship. I was a little more introverted. My husband's opinionated and straight talking and truthful and straight out and assertive. I really had to learn from him. I've been going to school on him, how to express myself more fully. He's been going to school on me on more of acceptance. So we become more, we're learning from one another, but not expecting ourselves to be the same, except when we do, and then we fight, and I'll tell you more about how to handle that when that happens. More importantly is common values, common purposes, not common interests, which I think makes sense when we say this. Okay, who are my chemistry ones? We had a few people that want to look at chemistry. All right, let's look at this one. So here's the issue with chemistry. When the chemistry is great, we don't have like meaningful combative discussions about what really matters. I mean, we are relating with our bodies, not our minds, which is great, but let's not pretend that that's the only thing that helps us have these relationships. So what happens is that with this chemistry, there's this chemical rush. I mean, there's a surge of chemicals, these hormones and serotonin and dopamine that's like moving through our bodies. And if you do a brain scan of someone, when we're thinking about our beloved, when we're in these lustful kinds of parts of it, your brain looks like you've got an obsession compulsion disorder, or you're really on drugs. I mean, we're like so high. We're like just high. It's that lovesick feelings, all these chemicals racing through our system. But the chemicals, we're high, we're obsessed in an altered state, but the chemicals don't last. They're not meant to. They never last. And then people think like, oh, when the chemistry invariably weakens, they think there's something wrong with the relationship. I'm not attracted to you anymore. We don't have any chemistry. No, it ran its course. It's supposed to, because this chemical reaction, no chemical reaction just keeps going. You know, maybe some do, but they complete themselves. So what could be happening, though, it just got you together in a way where you're getting ready for the next levels of relationship, which are really where it starts to become interesting. Companionate love is the part of this. So I want to look at that for a second, which is this combination of being securely attached and connected to another person, having more intimacy, having deep affection. And you can have this with friends, you can have this as coworkers. It doesn't just have to be loved ones. And then toward more consummate love, which many people consider like let me go back to that, the most blissful kind of love possible, where you have attraction and passion and commitment and security and realness. There's a depth of relationship that you're getting ready for. But if we think it's just about the chemistry, we won't allow ourselves to do the work to evolve to these other parts of relating. This is related, somebody said attraction, so we're going to go to that one for a second. This is related to chemistry, but what happens, we are attracted to people that is an unconscious response to people who unknowingly to us represent our parents. So what happens, they represent aspects of a relationship with parents. So for example, if you had a distant father for a woman, maybe perhaps you're attracted to more distant men. Or sometimes you can go the opposite way with that. So you maybe had more of an abusive or father, for example. You might try to go toward more milquetoast men to try to like avoid that. But it has an impact on who we're attracted to. See, we wouldn't, so the same thing if you have, or if you can see these childhood kinds of things, Maybe your father was somewhat of a jerk in some ways, but you will be attracted to jerks. I just want you to understand that will be what turns you on. Because what happens, we have this attachment relationship schema that's formed when we're very young. It forms in these neural pathways of our beliefs and our feelings, and whatever felt like love to us when we were young is what we think love is. And if it doesn't feel like that, we don't get attracted to it. So we don't know this consciously, but that's what's going on inside of us. So we get really, oftentimes, how many of you have gotten attracted to people before that are just really weren't good for you? I have. Well, there's a reason for that, because there's some, we can use that data, we can use that to kind of unlock some of those patterns and work with that. But it's really important because, and how many of you have been in a relationship that the person just made you crazy or so like freaking turned on by them? You're just like, oh my God. I am not the only one that has had that. I think that's all right, great. So, but what happens with that, if they make you crazy and you keep in relationship with them, they'll make you crazy, because that's kind of, how it starts and what happens. So what we want to look at, and I'm going to work with this in a bit, is that the law of engagement is what, it's not the law of attraction, is what builds attraction and fulfillment in relationships. Engaging fully, really knowing yourself and another person is what builds attraction. Did any of you see it? Actually, it surfaced again not too long ago in the New York Times about the 36 questions of intimacy, how to fall in love with anybody. Yeah, so it is fascinating. The study was done a long time ago, but it surfaced recently again. Arthur Aaron did this. There's a list of 36 questions that have kind of increasing degrees of exposure and vulnerability and truth, and you also then look at someone for 4 minutes. Well, the people that did this started feeling attracted and loving toward one another, and whether they were total strangers. So kind of the moral of the story is to get to know someone, to be more revealed, to be more real, is where the deeper kinds of attraction come from, not just that surface stuff, which is what we need. And this is, again, getting to know people at work is just as important to getting to know the people that you're dating or living with or in the field for you. The other is, all you need is love. Well, yeah, no, it's not at all. Because relationships, like any growing organic thing, need tending to. They need sustenance, they need resources, you got to pull the weeds, you got to give it the nourishment that it needs, and it takes skill and practice and dedication, not just love. This belief makes people lazy in love, which I think you can see in that way. So the real truth about this is great relationships take a tremendous amount of conscious effort. It's really a conscious thing to keep it in mind. And usually we're only conscious of our relationships in the beginning because they're filling our mind. But then once we get used to them, we're not as conscious about them. We're not as mindful about what's going on. So, and we don't put the effort into them, and we wonder why they don't work. We don't expect other areas of our life to be that easy. We enhance our career. We work on our sports skills. We do our yoga classes. We do our mindfulness training. We do things to get better at things, but we don't do this for relationships. We do lifelong training for many things in our lives, but not in relationships. What's that about? Because what's interesting, we work more on our golf swing sometimes than we do on our relationships. And relationships are the most important thing to us, but we're not putting in what we could to do that. And in fact, the earlier you work on relationships, the better. Not waiting to have a problem, doing it to enhance it. So in fact, they did a study of newlyweds. The newlyweds had just worked on the relationship to have the best relationship they could have, were 3 times more likely to succeed than those that waited till they had a problem to seek some counsel or some training. So working on yourself and not the relationship is what really matters. Because many people think we need to work on the relationship. No, you don't. You need to work on you. You becoming the most honest, truthful, real, genuine person you can become, fighting the battles you need to fight, is what can shift a relationship. Nice if you have someone that joins you in that journey, but just you doing that makes the difference. And then you can bridge it to the relationship. So I'm hoping maybe you're a little sobered by some of this. I've needed to be sobered by some of this. And we've looked at what we thought was good, but isn't. But I would like to look at what does help in these having great relationships. You can go on this journey. I'll pick a couple of these to work with. We've been doing this study on people who live great lives. And we found that they not only had these great lives, with amazing kind of vocational potential, and they're making more money, and they were serving more fully, their community service was beautiful, their missions, everything was kind of amazing, but we found they had this depth of intimacy in their relationships with their loved ones, with their families, with their coworkers, with their employees, and we're saying, whoa, what are they doing? So we studied them, and it was interesting. We found that there were this fascinating thing, that there was these 6 skills. I'm not going to go into these. I'm going to touch on the first 2 a little bit. that not only lead to great lives, but lead to great relationships. And we pulled this research together first in our book Transformed, and now we're applying it to relationships. We've been so fascinating in the heart of the fight that we're talking about today. So the first skill here out of all these are the 6 skills that are in there. So if you want more, you know where to get it, is yearning. This yearning is really, really, really important. So I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because yearning is the basis of all of our relationships. And I want to talk to you about what these are. Because when we're really in touch with what we really deeply long for, and we allow that to guide us in our moment-to-moment interactions, even here, as we're in this room right now, the yearning that we all have to love and be loved, the yearning that we have to be seen, to be heard, to be understood, to be known, the yearning we have to be affirmed, to express ourselves, to grow, to develop, to become, the yearning to matter, to make a difference, to do what we came here on earth to do, to be in touch with our emotions. If we're in touch with those, we can expect satisfaction moment by moment by moment by moment. There's always something you can do that can help you touch those greater yearnings. It's not a big move, it's not a broad stroke, but just in this moment, I'm yearning to be heard by you. I'm yearning to connect with you. I'm aware of those things as I'm being with it. It brings a quality to my experience. I'm not saying that I always fulfill that, but I'm aware that that's my hunger as I'm right here. It matters to me that we relate. I yearn to matter. I hope I make a difference for you in some way today, that something sparks that. That's part of what's fulfilling me as I'm speaking this, because I'm in touch with why I'm doing what I'm doing and what matters. And that's what's really important in relationships. And because any fight you have is because you have an unmet yearning. Any conflict you have at work, you have an unmet yearning. Perhaps you yearn to be seen and you're not being seen. You yearn to contribute and you're not finding that in that way. You yearn to be understood and you don't feel that people are really getting you. You yearn to make a difference and you don't feel like what you're doing is having the impact you want it to have. You yearn to connect and belong, and perhaps you're not having this sense of connection with your teammates that you really yearn for. The upset comes from the unmet yearnings. And any moment where you feel like, oh, satisfied, oh, this feels so good, that means your yearnings have been met. And that's why this is important, to really be with this in that way. And in order to work with these yearnings, we have to do something about it. We can't just yearn. There's a great Seinfeld clip, do you yearn? But we have to do more than just yearn. We have to really do something about it. We have to engage, which is the next thing. And I want to talk about this more. We have to engage in life, in conflict, in our relationships, in our work, in our teams, because what doesn't work is the opposite of this. We have to be willing to get hurt, live unedited, be made fun of, risk, be messy. These kinds of things are really important. We have to go out of our comfort zone in order to be real, to have relationships. Because relationships aren't about being careful, walking on eggshells. They're about being out there and going for what it is we need and we want, being as honest as we can. So it's also doing that, we need to be willing to make mistakes and make them boldly. We're going to screw up. We're too careful, we don't relate. When we're too, oh, what will they think? I can't do that. What will happen? Oh, I need to wait till he's in a good mood. No, I need to wait till the boss has had lunch. He's better after lunch. No, just, I mean, yeah, somewhat, but no, be with what's true for you, what really matters to you, and act on those yearnings in the moment. So I'm going to give you a little context on this. This is a relationship continuum, the engagement continuum. On the left side is all the stuff we do that's neutral and destructive. Actually, neutral becomes destructive. You end up going backwards with that. That's the stormy stuff of any relationship. But we want to go to what is it that's going to be more constructive? How do we have these transformational kind of relationships that make a huge difference? The key between these two sides of this continuum is being conscious and being in touch with your yearnings and having your feelings available to you. With that, something much more powerful can happen in our relationships. So I'm going to show you a little bit about what we need on this right side in this engagement continuum. And I want to set this context. I've been saying this, but relationships aren't fragile. I mean, if we treat them like a hothouse flower, they're never going to flourish. Most people, oh, I can't do that. He can't take that. She can't. You have no idea what people are capable of. Relationships are resilient, way more resilient than we expect them. We're way too careful oftentimes. I don't mean you need to be a toxic dump on people. I don't mean that. But I really do want you to understand that there's an importance of being real and genuine. So this whole part about, oh, it's like, did I miss one? No, let me go. All right. Love is messy. I love this photo. Like, it's messy. Are they having fun? It's like, love is messy. It's dirty. We have to be willing to get in there. Fairy tales are all sanitized. That notebook scene, that was messy. They're out there. They're yelling at one another. They're getting more truth out in that way. But true love is not some sanitized version of, running across the field in slow motion or whispering sweet nothings in somebody else's ear or that field of wildflowers or whatever that is. It's just not about that. Nor is it perfectly synchronized, beautifully synchronized, no sweat, no fart sex. That's not it. I mean, it's like these imaginary things that we think. It's not it at all. It's really full engagement. It's rolling up your sleeves and being willing to get into the relationship. It's saying beautiful things and hurtful things, the things you love and the things you hate, the things you care about deep in your heart, the things you're afraid of, the things that make you happy, the things that bring you joy, and being that revealed. It's being open and real and responsible. But to do this, you need some rules of engagement. So I'm going to cover a couple of these because these are pretty practical that you can take in this. The rules of engagement we found over all these years, been testing, what is it that makes for thriving relationships? We use these in business, we use them in families, we use them in couples. So see if you can look at this one. The first one may seem kind of, yeah, sure, we should accentuate the positive, but I cannot tell you how important this is because this is looking for what's positive in other people, in your teammates, in your boss, in the person you're dating, in your loved ones, in your family. It's looking for opportunities in your job, in your relationships. It's looking for ways to grow. How can I grow from this situation? It's being fully engaged in it so that you can build this backdrop of trust and goodwill so you can weather some of the tougher times. It's shifting your perspective to see what is there instead of oftentimes just looking for what's not there, what's missing. But what is there? Chances are there's a lot more than you've seen. See, and the other thing I want you to understand about romantic relationships, intimate relationships do not break up because people are fighting. They break up because you don't have enough of this. If you have enough positives built up, like kind of in your bank, you can weather a lot of difficulties. You've got goodwill that you can work things through. And this is what's missing for most people. And this is what's missing in teams. This is what's missing at work a lot of times. And it's what's missing in the quality of our lives. And I want to give you some examples of what this is. That the research shows, and ours does as well, that we have to be conscious about this, looking for it, grabbing it, soaking it in, really allowing ourselves to have that be there for ourselves. So things like more humor, having more joy and more fun, goofy, spontaneous interacting. I mean, you have a slide in this building. I mean, you have all kinds of ways to be able to engage that can help you break out of the norms of these kind of social constraints. But it's also showing interest and curiosity in other people, asking real genuine questions and wanting to hear the answer to them. Not just how was your day, how was your day? What was that? Or someone comes back from a meeting, what happened at the meeting? How was it? Really being interested in what's going on with people and really being present to whatever that is for yourself and to the other person. And this one, I mean, I know we all know about being present, but it's really difficult because we're usually thinking about something else and the next thing. You are right now. How many of you are present with what I'm talking about? I hope you are, so that would be great. But our minds go a lot of different places to bring ourselves back, to be present in the moment with what we're experiencing. So this also means that we need to be accessible, we need to be available, we need to be responsive and learn to be more responsive to others in that way. And also emotionally engaged, not just intellectually, not just with their minds, which is really important. Oh, this is one. How many of you want more appreciation and affirmation? I'm just going to, you don't have to do laundry to get it, even though that's why I'm doing that. You can, that is one way. But it's really important because, and also men need it more than women. And oftentimes we don't show the appreciation and affirmation or appreciation for just the doing that happens, the doing the laundry, whatever that is. This one I think you can all relate to. Who wants more affection in their lives? I did too, but I wasn't as willing to be as affectionate as I needed to be. My husband was more affectionate with me than I was to him, and I really had to go to school on him. I was shyer. It's very vulnerable to be affectionate. Now I'm cuddlier and everything. I had to work on that. But look at these. Don't these who doesn't want some of that, I love these. Oh, to have your relationship go to that. These just, yeah. And PDAs are really important. Public displays of affection are really, really important because that's saying in public, I care, I'm here, I'm with you, you matter to me. I'm willing to be seen as someone who loves you. That's a really important thing for us to share. Another is to be more supportive and to be an advocate for others and to inspire each other in this way. I'm just going to give you kind of a sense of being engaged in that way. Another one is celebrating other people's victories and their wins as if they were your own. being as excited for what goes well for people. What the studies are showing, that's much more important than being there when somebody's down. That it really is what brings them more of the depth of connection for people. And taking risks, saying the unsayable, doing the undoable, really just going beyond wherever you would have been. And I think you can understand this. Gifts and variety and surprises are important. Boredom's an issue at work, at home, and your romantic relationships. And it's up to you to create the sense of newness. And sharing your dreams and your hopes with everyone, with people at work, with your family, with your beloved. Really allowing people to know you by sharing your hopes and your dreams makes a huge difference. They did studies of couples talking, and couples, it's interesting, they studied all the things a couple talked about during a week. Most couples talk about logistics and stuff and plans, and at the max, couples had 17 minutes a week where they talked about something other than logistics. So I know, and that's common. So really bridging this to what we really need to be doing, and sharing our fears with one another, and our missions, what matters to us, where are we headed in our lives in that way. Having a sense of shared meaning and purpose is really important. Rachel, can you do a thing with me? Can you stand up and do a thing with me for a second? All right, so Rachel and I are in relationship, all right? So at this level, so we're in relationship. So now put your hand up here. If you have a mission and I have a mission, we have a higher purpose, the fighting and the stuff within the relationship, it doesn't have so far to go. It can work it through that. But if we don't have this is where the stuff happens. There's no reason to work stuff through. Well, I hope that demo there, okay, great, which is really important. Makes a big difference, and I thank you for that. So this one's really, obviously really important, having a sense of vision, really having, looking beyond the horizon. Where are you going? What matters to you? And sharing that with one another. This kind of way of being, this accentuating the positive, keeps you mentally fit. It is like a form of active mindfulness in your life, in applying it to relationships. It's like, we call it like mindfulness 2.0, because it's engaged in the moment, not just our meditation, which we love as well, but to really be mindful of our relationships and what helps craft that and craft us. It's living more mindfully moment by moment with one another and with others. And we are responsible for our own mental fitness, and this is what actually helps us train our hearts as well. I'm just going to go a little bit, I should probably just end it on the positive. I'm going to give you one other rule, and then I'll show you, then we'll kind of do a thing to wrap this up in a bit. The other part of this, we need to minimize the negative. So we need to build this basis of the positive, but we need to minimize the negative. In fact, and I want to show this one first. This one, minimize the negative for every snarky, icky thing we do, every mean-spirited, every whatever we do. The research shows we need 5 of those positives to just balance off that one. We're all going to be snarky. We're going to do stupid things. We're going to say mean things. We're going to hurt people's feelings. It's part of being human. Just take responsibility for it. Don't be so careful. But also know you've got to build this backlog of all the other great stuff so that you can weather this. I mean, you being real is really important. So let's look at these. The things to not do, we need to decrease, is avoiding conflict. That doesn't, or you avoid conflict, you're avoiding intimacy. You're avoiding creativity. You're avoiding possibilities in relationship at work or at home. I have a couple of these. Like, talk to the hand. Also, not hiding out, whether that's in your relationship or at work. It's very damaging to relationships. It's very, very costly to that. Having secrets, having the real conversations at work in the hallways rather than at the meetings, or talking behind people's back, or gossiping rather than being straight with people is another part of the issue. Gossip, drama, but also being checked out, kind of disengaged, that's damaging to relationships and damaging to work and teams at work. There's so many of these. So I know many of you know Gottman's work probably, but he has these 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The 4 things that I found are just really destructive to relationships. Withdrawing. Oh, this is another disengaged one. Is that so zoned? Yeah. Let me give you this one. Withdrawing and stonewalling. Really like not engaging is really deadly to relationships. Being defensive and passive aggressive, whether you literally flip the bird or not, but that's a defense that you have. Being critical as part of this as well, really being really critical of the person, not just what they're doing, but also contempt and disgust. And that can look a lot of ways, from eye rolling to mockery to hostile humor, all kinds of things. Or just really going at it this way at work could be a problem for you. But sometimes you're just so mad you can't stand it. It's like it's so bothering you. But part with that is to really learn how to deliver criticism with a vision. Yes, I don't like what you're doing. You're driving me crazy. I hate it. And this is the possibility I see. So they know that you see their higher self. At the same time, you're really frustrated or angry with what's there. But holding the tension of both of those is extremely important. And I'm going to go quickly through a few others just to kind of sum this up for us and then look at this. Third rule, these are about responsibility. Nobody gets to take or give more than 50% of the blame. You can blame, but it takes two to tango. So this is really important for us to see. So, you know, it's your fault, no, it's your fault, no. Did two, did not. How many of you have those second grade fights? I still do with my husband. Did two, did not, did two, did. They're not terribly productive, you may have noticed, because it doesn't, they're defensive and also have blame. So it's, you know, looking at this, what could I have done differently in this relationship? How can I take my 50% of the blame? What could I have said or done or set it up differently or made it more likely that I get what it is I wanted? Am I communicating my expectations? Am I training the people at work in order to meet those? Am I giving them effective feedback, or am I just sitting there resenting that they're not doing what I want them to do and being mad about it, but not taking my 50% blame and doing something about it? So related to this, everybody, each of us is 100% responsible for our own satisfaction and happiness. That's important, that you're 100% responsible for creating value at this talk. I can't do that for you. That's yours to do. I'll give you as much as I can. You're 100% responsible for creating value in your job, in your work, on a date, in a meeting, in a conversation. That's yours. You can do that. No one else can do that for you. And it's really, it's so important. We had a woman in our program who did our signature program, this Year of Transformation program. When she began, she was married. She'd been married for 30-some years. And she would talk about her husband. She called him, what's his name? What's his name? I never knew his name. She said, well, what's his name? And she kind of sneered, what's his name? And she was complaining about him all the time. All he did was watch TV, he wasn't supported, blah, 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 blah. She started to use these rules of engagement, took her part of the blame, took 100% of the responsibility. It's pretty amazing. Like 2 years later now, she's very deeply in love. So is he. He's had some health challenges. She's been there fully for him. It's really been quite an amazing journey. She cries talking about him. She's so moved with her love for him. And he didn't do anything. He responded to her. She started taking, of course he did, because she was changing the system, but she was taking more responsibility, going for being satisfied instead of just blaming it all on him. And it really led to this beautiful, satisfying relationship. 100%. So if you see that, when everybody at work, if everybody's taking 100% responsibility, what happens is that everybody puts together what the solutions are amazing when that occurs. That the creativity and the problem solving that happens. We use this in businesses a lot, and it's really critically important for what ends up happening. So I'm going to give you another one. Yeah, going for satisfaction. Express and agree with the truth, always. Always. Do you know, some of you are dating, 100% of dating couples lie? That means all of us. That means every single one of us. It's like, we don't tell the truth. We're trying to impress each other or whatever. That causes a big problem. So this is actually telling the truth, but also when someone else tells the truth, that you tell the truth. You remember, you acknowledge the truth when it's being said. You take it in. That you use straight talk. You're real. You're genuine. You don't go around the bush. You're just straight out. You give real feedback, and you take it when it comes your way. It's very, very important for us to be willing to look at that. And to tell the truth, to really tell the truth, to be willing to really say what's so cross your heart. I hope you don't die, but really just being willing to do that in the way. Another one I'm going to quickly go to is fighting for something, not just against someone or their point. This is really important because oftentimes in conflict you start fighting against somebody. So if you can, in conflict, remember what's your purpose. What is it that you wanted? What's the outcome that you wanted? What's your decided outcome? So you're not fighting against someone or their point, or just resisting, but you're fighting for what you yearn for so that you have a direction for your conversations. And there's another, huge, assuming goodwill. This one's a little tough because in a relationship, it's really hard in a fight or conflict or whatever to remember that this is your beloved, that this is your friend. This is someone when you're so mad or so hurt or so scared. They're not just out to get you, they're hurt and angry or scared. And that's how it's playing out in that way. And at work, rather than assuming ill will and turning your boss and your coworkers into the ugly stepmother and stepsister, to really show your belief in them, encourage them toward a higher vision. Try to assume the goodwill. Look for it, and it's there, and then you'll see them as the people that they really are, and can bring out much greater gifts in them, even when they have a negative attitude. To see the possibilities that are in that. There's another one about assuming goodwill. I want to give you this one because emotional intelligence is extremely related to what I'm talking about. There's a part, how many of you recognize when you really get mad or really scared and your heart's beating really fast? How many of you know that feeling? You're just kind of taken over in that way. It's kind of, you're really flooded with emotion. You're in this high physiological arousal state. If your heart beats 100 beats a minute and you're not working out, you're under the influence of this kind of thing that's happening. But what happens when we're in that state is we don't see what's there. Our perception really changes. We start to see negativity where it doesn't exist. We coat neutral things with negative. We miss 50% at least of the positive things that are going on around us. And we need to know that it's not real, it's just we're clouded in that moment. If we train ourselves more mindfully to look for what is there, we can shift out of that. So I'm going to wrap this now and kind of bring some things together for us. But I want to look at all these things that we've been looking at, these rules of engagement. I'm hoping you can find at least one that you could practice today, this afternoon, tonight, throughout the week, that you could take a little more responsibility for, a little more truth here. Maybe it'll add a little positive, diminish a little bit negative, just even a little bit. And that way, because what happens is we start to then discover what the true purpose of relationships are. The relationships aren't there to make us happy. We should have some happy, enjoyable moments, of course. To share your life with another human being, any other human being, is a great, great gift. But it really is to challenge us and awaken us and help us develop into who we could become, to grow and transform and realize our potential, to serve as both a womb for nurturing us and supporting us and soothing us and tending to us, but also a crucible for growth, so that it keeps us on our edge for what's possible, to be challenged by it in that way. To bust those myths and beliefs that are limiting us and to really believe in the possibilities so that we can create this heroic kind of love we talked about earlier, where we tap that potential. We're everyday heroes, sharing our deepest yearnings, telling deeper truths, going for it, taking risks, making mistakes, engaging, encountering others more fully, not being so careful, being real, becoming a transformation in ourselves, and then contributing to transformational relationships wherever we are, being that light in that way. Being willing to engage in the tough battles and conflicts and fight things through, to get satisfied and get to the deeper truth about what's really going on in that way. To be on this cutting edge of possibilities. And this is the first time in history relationships have been able to get to this point. We had many other purposes throughout history. Now there's a potential for that transformation and contact that we've never had before. And it's going to be ours to do that. And those that come beyond us. So I'm suggesting we start it. That we become as real and authentic as we can and use these skills to do that, to be a new model of intimacy and partnership in our lives. And I want to wrap up a little bit with this. I know that it takes a lot of skill to do this. I know in my own life, I need continually learning new skills to do this and practice. And I would love to support you with that. And I told you earlier I had a gift for you. Let me give you that. And so also for the live stream, I'll give you a way to do that. There is a flyer and a little card right here. We do a weekend training in these skills, and which is really powerful. You have experiences of it, you learn about it, you practice them, all kinds of things to really have these great relationships and great lives. It's ordinarily, we charge $800 for this training. It's complimentary to all of you. I'd love to have you come. It's in Chicago. It's a wonderful place to visit. I would love to see you again. And all you need to do is fill out this card. We do 5 a year. This would hold a space in any one of the 5 that you could come to. You may not know what that is yet. You could just put, I'll check my calendar, or I'll check it out. But by doing this, you'll hold a spot, and I'll make sure that you get your complimentary admission. Also, we're doing a raffle today because I want to give you more support. We have some wonderful prizes, some books, and some other things to give you. So if you fill this out, that you can participate in the raffle as well. And on the live stream, let me give you a link that you can go to. So this is the training that I'm talking about. And you get these skills of social emotional intelligence to live these beautifully. And on the live stream, or if you're watching this by video, you can go to this link as well. So if you take a second and fill those out, and I want to make sure you get your prizes before you leave. So, and Katie and Maria will pick this up from you. And if you have any questions while they're doing that, I would love to entertain those before we take off. Anything you want to, or anything you want to say, any genuine, real, truthful thing you
Any
want to say,
questions?
I'd love to hear as well.
I know we're at time, but if anyone has a burning question. If not, we can give a round of applause. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you for that. Thank you. It's been a joy to be with you. And again, if I can support you in any way, I would love to. And let me know. I will be here to sign books or answer any personal questions if you'd like as well for a little bit before I fly back to Chicago today. But thank you. Thank you for being in a relationship with me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you. So shall we go love well? Are you up for it? Who's up for it? Let's go love well. Let's love well and often. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank
And
you,
again,
Judith.
if you want to give these cards, we'll make sure you hopefully get your prizes quickly. And I'd love to see you.